Okay, we're back. Well, I don't want to beat up on the Catholic Church at all. I really don't want to do that. But it was so strange. I just really wanted to talk a little bit about it. Of course, I had a big line to get into the service, and then they were handing out the little brochures with her picture on it and information. And, she looks just like her mom, just like her mom. And, anyway, we went in, signed the guest book, and then I sat in the very back row because the whole place was just packed full, and then we still had 20 minutes before the service would even start, and it was very hot in there. I wish I hadn't wore this, but it was pretty terrible. But don't wear a shirt and tie very often, but I can. So anyway, sat there for a long time, and I immediately noticed right off the bat all these things that we don't have at our church. They have a lot of statues and images and just things, a lot of brass and gold and candles, very unusual candles, covered with different types of glass, and just a lot of unusual stuff that we absolutely don't have at Applegate. We don't have that. Images, of not Jesus. Images that are not Jesus, and that's, to me, that's idol worship. I don't know if it's quite like that, but to me, that's what it seems like. And, well, the real strangeness didn't happen until after the service started. The people, the guys, the priests, and the children, and so forth, and they're all dressed in white, these white robes, and then as it starts, they're bringing all this brass and gold as they bring the casket in, and just what's a word I'm looking for? Rituals, like legalism, just these things that seem so not appropriate. Rituals, just rituals. And I don't know much about the Catholic Church, but I just noticed this ritual stuff that was so strange. And then up at the pulpit, they have a pulpit. It's very similar to what we have at church, but we don't have a pulpit. But then there's a back room area where the pastors and the singers can go in at our church. But here all these people are going in, but then they stop before they enter, and they kneel down, and I thought, what are they doing? So I started trying to get a good look, and there's something on the wall next to the doorway on both sides. I could only see one, and it's some type of a white image, and it's long and tall, and it didn't look like a cross, but it looked like an image of somebody, something. And they would stop and kneel to it, and and do this, and then they would go in. And it was a place where they kept their stuff similar to what we have out there. And then they would come out and they'd do the same thing again, kneel down on the ground and worship whatever this was. I didn't get close enough to see what it was, but it was highly unusual. Like I said, the images and everything. And then when the service started, a couple of the priests or pastors, I don't even know what they're called, but they sit behind, and they sit elevated, behind against this wall where we would have the glass with the water coming over it and the big cross. That's what we have. And they sit elevated, and then and whoever's speaking, and there was men and women speak, and when all of a sudden they would stop speaking and raise their hand, and then the people where we're sitting out there would suddenly say a prayer. And I was so confused. I couldn't pray. I couldn't even think, because of all these things that I'm not used to. I couldn't figure out what they were doing, and it was very confusing and very annoying to me, really. And it was just impossible to concentrate on praying. And a bunch of this stuff went on, and then they finally got to, well, they read some out of the book, out of the Bible, and a few things that were said by the ministers, pastors, priests, and one was a woman, did not jive with what Pastor John has been teaching us. Several different things that I thought were very incorrect. And then it came time for communion, and they take communion. The priests, the guys in the white, they take communion out of this big cup, and they, as one guy's, the first guy's taking the communion, the other guy's standing behind him, kind of doing, I don't even know what it is. I wanted to bust out laughing. It looked so funny, and of course I didn't, because it wasn't very. Oh, I don't mean to make fun of it. I mean, absolutely not. It was just so much unnecessary stuff, and I don't know what it means. I really would like to learn, but they take communion first out of this big gold cup, and then the bread, and then they stop, and it's like, I'm thinking, don't we get communion? I guess not. But actually, it took about 15 minutes, but then they start offering communion, and you got to get out of the seat, you got to go up there. And I watched it, I thought, I've already had communion at 6:45 this morning, my normal time, and so I'm not going to take it again. And I'm really not going to take it because the priest gives it to you. Literally, you got to go up there, and then the priest, does this, and then he sticks it in your mouth. And I don't know about that. I don't know that that's correct. It doesn't seem to be. So anyway, I gotta get a move on again. I'm really falling behind here. I'm not gonna make yet another video. So I'm only gonna make 2 parts. So anyway, I sat through that, and there was a lot of stuff that I questioned, but it wasn't the time to bring that up. So, it's nobody I'm going to bring it up to. But, I want to talk to some of the people at church about that, and JR, and whenever I'm up there Thursday next week, just kind of bring it up to whoever I'm talking to in the coffee shop, what have you. So. But give me your thoughts about that, Cecile, about the Catholic situation. I don't know that it's bad. I certainly consider them to be my Christian brothers and sisters, but I don't see any reason for all that stuff that a tremendous amount of stuff. If I had taken my notepad in there, I could have made a big list of stuff, and but anyway, give me your thoughts, as I'm running out of time and I gotta go. So God bless you, and hopefully have a cooking video for you next week. Goodbye.